7 right now. Next news at 7. Breaking news as it happens. Chicago's Morning Answer with Dan and Amy continues next on AM 560, The Answer.
From the Matrix Home Solutions Studios, this is Chicago's Morning Answer on AM 560, The Answer.
Listen to AM 560, The Answer, online at 560theanswer.com, on the AM 560 mobile app, on your Alexa-powered smart speaker, on TuneIn, iHeart, and radio.com. Only the biggest stories, only the biggest guests, and only the biggest opinions. This is AM 560, The Answer.
Top of the morning, Dan and Amy. Just rounding out our conversation from before Mike Scott's newscast about Operation Safe Pump. This is police officers being charged to pump gas for seniors to prevent carjackings.
Yeah, it's a safety issue, yeah.
Mm-hmm. We got some other suggestions on that. Why don't the police just offer to drive the carjackers wherever they want to go? There's an idea. Operation Safe Valet. Police officers as professional drivers for carjackers. That's an idea. That is an idea. Maybe somebody come up with an app specifically for carjackers. Also, a police officer friend texting, it's embarrassing. I remember a time where I felt very proud to put this uniform on. Now I call it a costume. And I responded to her, because they're forcing you to pantomime a police officer. And that's what's happening. So I don't know, maybe we'll need a U.S. Marshal. We'll have like U.S. Marshals on planes. We'll have to have a Chicago police officer in every civilian car in order to prevent carjackings. Anything but Operation Prosecute Violent Offenders. That's the one operation.
That's the common sense one, yes.
That's the one operation the civilian political leaders in Chicago will not entertain. It's just remarkable. Also, this remarkable on a positive note, Jason Riley, Wall Street Journal columnist, ed board member, on schools. Data from a website that aggregates test score results finds 23 of the top 30 schools in New York in 2019, in terms of performance, were charters. He writes, the feat is all the more impressive because those schools sported student bodies that were more than 80% black and Hispanic, and some 2/3 of the kids qualified for free or discount lunches, meaning they qualified financially. The Empire State's results were reflected nationally. U.S. News and World Report ranking released for 2019. 3 of the top 10 public high schools in the country were charters, as were 23 of the top 100, even though charters make up only 10% of the nation's 24,000 public high schools. He also tackles some of the arguments made against charters by teachers' union apparatchiks, that students, the charter schools succeed by handpicking the best students. Well, in point of fact, 43 states have charter schools. All but 3 mandate lotteries be used to choose students randomly. Not true. And also, if it's the poverty and segregation and systemic racism that is preventing black and brown kids from succeeding in school, then how do you account for example, the performance of those charter schools that are majority minority and majority kids on free or reduced school lunch, meaning below they qualify in terms of their household finances. So, yeah, the arguments just continue to melt away. And to some extent, you say, well, when is it going to happen? And I guess this is sort of like the opposite of The Big Short, the crash. When is it going to happen? When's the housing bubble going to burst? And the famous line, it's happening. You just haven't felt it yet. And so the flip side of that is, when is it going to happen? School choice, the expansion of competition, the embrace of charter schools. It's happening. Maybe you haven't felt it yet. It's not where it should be. As I say, 10% of the nation's 24,000 public schools being charters. Not as many states have opportunity scholarship programs as should. They're not as expansive as they should be, but it's happening. It's happening. And the question that Riley posed in his piece is, has the teachers union or the teachers unions writ large nationwide, have they finally overplayed their hands in places like Chicago? For more on the topic, we're pleased to be joined by former Wisconsin governor and current president and CEO of Young America's Foundation, Scott Walker. Governor Walker, thanks for joining us again. Appreciate it.
Hey, good morning. Great to be with you. A little
So,
cold here in the Midwest, but we're hardy, so that's right.
yeah, that's right. We're used to that in February, I suppose.
Only minus
so
19. It'll be fine.
So Milwaukee was sort of the ground zero for the school choice movement back in the early '90s. Polly Williams and Governor Tommy Thompson, and that whole movement to introduce choice and give poor, largely minority families the same options as wealthier families around Milwaukee. And so Wisconsin's been a leader on that issue. And I just wonder what your answer to Jason Riley's question is. Have the teachers' unions finally overplayed their hand during this pandemic?
Absolutely. You see it nowhere greater than in Chicago, but we see it elsewhere as well. In New York, in Fairfax County, Virginia, across the nation. I was pleased to be a part of that in the 90s with Tommy Thompson. Actually was part of the second wave early in the 90s that not only expanded vouchers to low-income families, starting the Milwaukee Parental Choice Program, but expanding it to include religious faith-based schools, which has been a huge boom for families now, not only in Milwaukee, but as governor, I pushed to expand it statewide, and it's been phenomenal. It puts power in the hands of the parents to make the right decision. I think in general, not just because of the teachers union, but at a time when people are wondering, parents are wondering, why can't my kids go back to school? Why are they being taught, in some cases, some of this nonsense they're seeing virtually? But particularly, why can't they go to school? It's a great time to say, well, instead of giving the government all the money for education, let's just give each parent a fixed amount, let he or she or that family go out and pick what's right for their child. In most cases, it's going to be in person, but in other instances, it might be virtual. But let them make that decision. That's exactly right. And the results, as you were just talking about, speak for themselves, not only in Wisconsin, but across the nation.
But this hybrid learning and remote learning and combination of both are neither in certain school districts, again, like you mentioned, and also in Philadelphia. This cannot be a sustainable system, but I'm already hearing talk of next fall that they want to do a hybrid system. They always want to give kids a chance to either do remote or in-person learning. And I think we need to get them back in the classroom, off computers. We need pen and paper and real interaction between the teacher and students.
Well, and this is where, as you know, you're probably in the same boat. I don't often agree with the political statements of the mayor of Chicago, but on this one, she's absolutely right. In fact, if Chicago was in the state of Wisconsin, because of our Act 10 reforms that, of course, got all the attention and the hundreds of thousands of protesters in return for 14 of our Senate Democrats going down to Illinois 10 years ago. But our reforms have paid off, and for all the hype and hysteria, what they really did is take the power out of the union bosses' hands and put them firmly in the hands of the not only the taxpayers, but the people they elect to run their schools and local governments. And in Chicago, you could have gone back some time ago to full-time in-person school. I thought the mayor was exactly right when she pointed out not just that kids learn better, but particularly minority kids who are already in many cases at a disadvantage, not so much just because of their race, but their economic status. They really need in-person education, and was very passionate about that. And I thought she was absolutely right. And yet the teachers' unions blocked that every step of the way. I thought what epitomized this more than anything, you've talked about it, was the teachers' union, one of the leaders who on one instance on social media said, this is absolutely outrageous, we can't be in person. And then later that day, we saw her on Instagram by a pool in Puerto Rico. Yeah. You can't make this stuff up. And that's exactly why I think you're right. The union has overplayed their hand.
Although, Lightfoot's encouragement is about 10 months late. And basically, Chicago Democrats' encouragement with respect to the instruction in CPS is about, 60 years late and just continues to be lacking. But I wonder...
So you're right about that, but that shows you how outrageous it is that even someone who normally is politically out of tune as much as the mayor and some of the other leaders down, even they understand how really critical this is to get these kids back in the school, back in the classroom. There's more than just a debate about the unions at stake. This is about these kids' futures.
Well, exactly, and I don't understand why this isn't more of a central issue for the Republican Party. That's just relentlessly drumbeating on this, particularly when you have divisions within Democrat ranks. And I'm not just talking about some mayors and some teachers unions. talking about some mayors and some teachers unions and Joe Biden. Joe Biden saying, maybe we should try to get back to 1 day a week in-person learning as a sop to the unions. So that really, if you press on these mayors and frankly, suburban, including in the suburbs and suburban school districts, the parents, and so is this the path you want to chart? That you have teachers unions aligned with your federal leadership, the people in control of the federal government, to say 1 day of in-person learning is enough to strike the balance between the interests of the teachers unions and the kids. This seems like a golden opportunity to advance the substance of the issue as well as the politics.
Well, and I think they need to even go further. I mean, remember a week ago, the CDC director, for all this hype over the last year about science and science deniers, who are the science deniers now? The CDC director got up at a White House press briefing on COVID-19 and said it is absolutely safe for students and staff to go back, even if the teachers haven't been fully vaccinated. It is safe to go back to the classroom within hours. The White House press secretary, Jen, I'll circle back to you, said, well, she was really speaking in her own personal capacity. She was listed as the CDC director at a White House press briefing on COVID. And yet, because it was the blowback they got from the teachers union, I said, you're not an essential worker if you can't show up when it's essential. And in America, the teachers unions or any union shouldn't be calling the shots. It should ultimately be the American people and people in each state and in each jurisdiction. And that's what's just so frustrating here is the science overwhelmingly says that kids and staff are safe. And in fact, it in Chicago, the Catholic schools have been back in school since last fall. That's been true in New York and elsewhere across the country. You can do this. You can follow safe protocols. You can do things that keep your staff safe. They've overwhelmed. I was just with someone last night who's with a Catholic school in Milwaukee, and she said the only people on their staff they had troubles were people who got COVID, not through school, but through interacting with other people outside of school where they weren't following the protocols. So if you follow the protocols, there's no reason why kids and staff can't be safe at school. And it's time for us to stand up for the kids.
I want to get to your tenure at Young America's Foundation, what that's going to look like, the fights you're going to take up in an environment where the names of Lincoln and Washington are being removed from schools. And even just in Western civilization generally, Churchill and J.K. Rowling's names are also being removed from schools across the pond. How Young America's Foundation is going to battle against the effort to rewrite American history.
Yeah, it's insane. San Francisco took 44 names off, including Paul Revere. What did Paul Revere do to get the disdain of the woke left? It is absolutely crazy out there. I saw last night the Dallas Mavericks now are no longer going to play the national anthem. It used to be the American flag and the national anthem were those civic rituals that brought everyone together. It didn't matter your race, your sex, your ethnic background, even your political party. When they played the national anthem, every American stood. We stood when the flag went by. Those were things that were passed on from one generation to the next, and they united us as a country. And Ronald Reagan warned about this back in 1989, his farewell address. Reagan was a longtime supporter of YAF, YAF.org, if people are interested, Young America's Foundation. And he warned us that if we weren't vigilant towards passing on that love for America, that pride in our country, it was going to pass. And sadly, he was right, and that's where our goal is. We do well with the students we reach. I just want to reach more. When I see these numbers embracing socialism, we're going to have a presence on every campus, more than 4,000 in America. We're going to delve even deeper into high school. We're going to start a junior high program. We've got the Reagan Ranch, which is pretty cool, Reagan's actual ranch out in Santa Barbara, California, where we have conferences. I'm going today to Dixon, Illinois, where we just took over the boyhood home of President Reagan, another place we're going to bring in speakers and conferences. And we're going to take our YouTube. In fact, if people want to join us, youtube.com/YAFTV. Tomorrow night at 7 Central, we're going to be talking about how the reforms that saved Wisconsin 10 years ago can help save America. So there's a lot of different ways. Big speakers on campus like Ben Shapiro and Michael Knowles. We're going to do even more of that future. But there's just so much to be done. And what we find is if young people hear the truth works. Conservative, common sense thought works. We just know that they're trying to cancel it on campus, in culture, and even with big tech and our communications. We cannot let that happen.
I leaned on Young America's Foundation many years ago when I was an undergrad at Northwestern to bring in speakers on campus to expand the debate there. It's a great organization. Ron Robinson, before you, did a great job, and glad that you're at the helm. Scott Walker, former Wisconsin governor, president and CEO of Young America's Foundation. Thanks, Scott.
Have a great one. Be warm.
Thank you. And he joined us on our turnkey.pro answer line.
It's what Chicago is talking about. It's Chicago's Morning Answer with Dan and Amy on AM 560. The Answer.
The Lou Dobbs Financial Report is brought to you by Signature Bank, helping local businesses succeed. Visit signaturebank.bank for your commercial banking needs.
I'm Keith Peters in for Lou Dobbs. The New York Stock Exchange may pull out of New York. Shortage in computer chips continues for automakers, and drug maker Eli Lilly's CFO has resigned. Those stories next.
Lou Dobbs here. Looking for predictable monthly cash flow? Is the potential of 10% annualized immediate monthly payout good for starters? How about bonuses targeted to 21%? If you want the safety and security of a real estate investment, but without the hassles of being a landlord, you've probably heard of NRIA. NRIA is an industry-leading real estate development firm in its 15th year, developing strategically located, low-risk, high-demand neighborhoods based on supply-demand imbalance. They are a great fit for investors who want to seek the safety of cash flow and diversification into carefully chosen real estate. Learn more about the NRIA Real Estate Development Fund at nria.net or call 201-210-2727. That's 201-210-2727.
An offer of securities is only made by the NRIA Private Placement Memorandum. Read it first. Past performance does not guarantee future results. NRIA is a real estate development firm. Learn more at nria.net.
The New York Stock Exchange says it may leave the Empire State if the New York legislature adds a proposed transfer tax on stock sales, a move opposed by Governor Andrew Cuomo. Volkswagen and Ford Motor Company have had to cut back production of cars and pickup trucks because they faced a shortage of automotive computer chips. Experts in the automotive industry warn the situation is unlikely to turn around anytime soon. The chief financial officer of pharmaceutical giant Eli Lilly resigned Tuesday after the company announced it had discovered inappropriate personal communication with some company employees. Lilly took quick action in the response. Shares of Lilly, which had risen 40% in the past year, dropped 2% today. Please join Lou 3 times each weekday for his updates from the Salem Radio Network, right here on this station. This is the Lou Dobbs Financial Report.
Trees provide us with many benefits: clean air, energy cost savings, and improved aesthetics, just to name a few. However, if trees are not managed properly, they can wind up costing us more than the benefits provide. The mission of Graph Tree Care is to maximize the benefits of your trees while helping minimize costs, risk, and liability. Graph Tree Care is the leader in urban forest management, tree inventory, and tree risk management. Working with over 30 municipalities, 50 park districts, and hundreds of homeowners associations, Graph Tree Care uses a tech-based platform to keep track of your trees in real time. They use the system to map, monitor, and plan for your tree population. Graph Tree Care